This is our Kirito of the moment. He starts off running down the sidewalk. As soon as he enters a store, one of the clerks confirms that they kept a copy of the pre-ordered game. The employee then shows him the game box, the remake titled Night Saga. It's another fantasy game about humans and demons. The player can choose to be the human hero named Locke. The other option is to play as the Demon King's eldest son, Zephyr. From there, the goal is to travel across the world and complete missions. Our Kirito had already finished the old version more than 10 times. But now, with the new virtual technology, you can already imagine what's about to happen. Back home, he walks toward his chair. Carefully, he removes the small cartridge from its package. Sitting down, he adjusts the virtual reality helmet over his head. He then inserts the cartridge into the console to begin the immersion. With his arms crossed, he prepares for a long session. His initial plan is to play for just 8 hours without overdoing it. Blue rays of light envelop his body as the immersion completes. Suddenly, his first sight in the game is the ceiling of an unknown place. The young man wonders if he's really inside the game, since he didn't wake up in a bed. Another question arises when he notices his features are different. Startled, he realizes he's in the body of someone he doesn't recognize. A deep voice from the doorway asks if he's still sleeping. An orc enters the room and hurries him, saying they have a busy day ahead. Impressed, the player compliments the graphics, but the creature doesn't understand the word. He soon realizes he can communicate with the characters. The creature introduces himself as Karak and asks for the young man's name. He then calls him Prince Shutra, demanding he hurry up and leave. It's at that moment he discovers he's in the body of Shutra Ibnas, the 9th son of the Demon King. With a wave of his hand, he tries to open the status window. Immediately, the screen appears in midair, displaying the character's information. The prince analyzes the attributes and notes the stats are low for someone his rank. Checking the skills, he finds 2 new options that weren't in the original game. Intrigued, he wonders about the meaning of the protagonist's setting adjustment skill. Kara calls him again from the door, insisting he come out now. Without arguing, he decides to follow him out of the tent. Outside, the scene leaves him completely stunned. A small army of orcs is gathered in the camp, ready for action. The young man asks about the warlike atmosphere, but the guard tells him to stop talking nonsense. The creature then reveals their mission is to eliminate these Scarlet Lightning bastards. The army roars in celebration, but the boy despairs, realizing there's no tutorial. At that moment, the Scarlet Lightning orc tribe had started a rebellion. Shutra must deal with the conflict alongside the 7th prince and the 8th princess. The young man's concern grows as events unfold. He questions why they are only taking 10 people, but Kara corrects him, saying it's just a patrol. The guard finds the prince's behavior strange as he prefers to remain silent. With a simple gesture, the young man opens a holographic interface beside him. A minimap of the area appears and he decides to keep it active to help navigate. Analyzing the image, he finds a secret path and suspects it might be an event. Kara complains that the initial route would take an eternity. The prince takes the lead, assuring them he knows a much faster shortcut. The group follows their new guide down a narrow trail through the forest. The orcs press on, still suspicious, through the dense woods. The alternate route leads them to a steep, rocky slope. The physical exertion leaves the young man panting and covered in sweat. After a great deal of effort, they reach a clearing with a large stone gate in the center. The old, cracked structure stands out amidst the dense vegetation. One of the orcs asks how the prince found the place and if he's a mage. Exhausted, the boy realizes the physical weakness of a level 1 character. Ignoring the question, he asks them to check if the gates can be opened. Suddenly, an intense golden aura explodes around the prince's body. The young man is startled by the sudden manifestation of power. A system notification confirms that the character has leveled up. He's in disbelief for having gained experience just by walking. His stats have increased and he was also granted 2 additional skill points. The unexpected discovery leaves him thoughtful for a few moments. The orcs call him over to help open the gate, and he joins the group. The prince feels more secure knowing he's not alone on this journey. The special skill he has acts as a kind of plot armor. The gate opens, revealing the entrance to a dark and mysterious cave. Kara comments that dwarves must have dug this place, but Shutra didn't know it existed. Inside the cave, the group finds a vast treasure of weapons and chests. The creatures celebrate the discovery, shouting that the dwarves left everything behind. As they collect the items, the prince watches in silence, arms crossed. When he tries to pick up the strongest weapons, the system informs him that his level is too low. He decides to store the items in his inventory for future use. With a simple touch and the thought of taking it, the object is stored. The inventory system works in an intuitive and practical way. Looking at the minimap again, the young man notices several red dots approaching. Startled, he yells for all his companions to get back immediately. A reddish energy begins to form in the center of the orc group. The accumulated mass explodes violently, throwing the creatures far away. Amidst the rising dust, a red-skinned warrior appears. The general of the Scarlet Lightning tribe declares he knew they would come this way. The enemy leader orders his troops to advance and kill all the invaders. The red warriors furiously attack the still recovering group. The battle quickly turns into a massacre, with the prince's allies falling one by one. One of the green orcs is struck down, falling lifeless before the boy. Determined not to stand by, the prince decides to steal kills to gain experience. He runs toward an enemy already fighting another ally. With a leap, he strikes a blow using all his strength. To his surprise, the sword's blade shatters upon hitting the opponent's shoulder. The red warrior slowly turns his head, staring at him with glowing eyes. Terrified, the young man turns and breaks into a desperate run. While running, he trips on a stone on the cave floor. He falls on his back and starts to crawl away, trying to escape the danger. A system notification indicates his health is in critical condition. The enemy approaches, roaring, about to deliver the final blow. With his eyes shut, the prince screams, awaiting the attack that would end everything. At the last second, Karak throws himself in front of him and blocks the blow. The orc guard bellows for his prince to move immediately. The two warriors engage in a brutal exchange of blows in the hall. The young man watches the fight with trembling hands, repeating that it's just a game. The experience feels too real, and he decides he needs to stop. He tries to open the menu, but no window appears. Searching for skills, he discovers he doesn't have any available yet. Confused, he can't find any control options. The system doesn't even have a button to log out and exit the virtual reality. A terrible suspicion takes hold of his mind. Maybe he's trapped in the game. In the distance, the last of his allied orcs are slaughtered by the enemy general. The Red Tribe's leader concentrates immense energy in his hand. A powerful beam is fired toward the defenseless prince. The boy understands that he absolutely cannot die in this place. The attack hits him square in the chest, causing a devastating wound. The explosion hurls him backward violently. Fallen, he struggles to breathe as his vision darkens. The general approaches slowly, panting after the attack. The enemy warrior gathers energy to finish the job. The status screen displays the prince's HP reaching 0, confirming his death. The prince finds himself alone in a dark, completely empty space. He looks around, confused, certain he had been defeated by the orcs. Amidst the panic, he begins to wonder if this means he's dead. Suddenly, an intense golden light appears in the center of the darkness. A mysterious voice calls him a predestined existence and orders him to conquer. An ethereal woman appears before him, telling him to dominate and then rule. The boy is speechless at the apparition and the orders he received. The light intensifies, enveloping the prince's entire body. Time in the cave rewinds to the start of the battle against the red orcs. Once again, the enemy troops mercilessly slaughter his allies. From a distance, the general watches the confrontation with his soldiers. The enemy tribe's leader scoffs at their stupidity for fighting while outnumbered. He then orders his warriors to advance and eliminate them all quickly. Then he notices a strange light and wonders if it's an awakening. Before his eyes, the prince reappears, enveloped in a golden aura. A system notification announces the acquisition of the telekinesis skill. The young man doesn't understand how he learned something so suddenly. In his status, new information appears, surprising him. The character now has the Knight of Conquest subclass. The enemy general becomes enraged and orders his soldiers to kill him without delay. Karak, still alive, stares at the prince with an expression of utter disbelief. The few remaining allies gather, shouting that he must not be harmed. The creatures form a protective circle around the young man to defend him. He stares at the broken dagger in his hand while checking his status. The new subclass doesn't belong to any of the options seen in the original game. The mystery of the power's origin intrigues him. Suddenly, a golden energy begins to emanate from the weapon, rebuilding the blade in pure light. Spells echo in his mind as if he had always known them. The power of conquest awakens, a king's true gift. Leaping over his allies, he releases a wave of energy that hits them full on. The skill's effect strengthens the warriors, making their power overflow. Motivated by their newfound power, the orcs advance to devastate the enemy. One of the strengthened orcs throws a single punch and crushes his opponent. Now the creatures fight with renewed vigor, dominating the battlefield. In a short time, the tide turns and the prince's allies take control. The enemy general watches in disbelief as his soldiers fall one by one. To him, the whole situation seems absurd and inexplicable. His eyes search through the chaos for the source of that sudden power. Finally, his focus turns to the prince, still glowing gold. Enraged, the general summons 3 energy crystals and hurls them at the boy. The prince faces the approaching attack without showing any sign of fear. Karak leads forward to intercept the powerful spell. The young man grabs the guard's shoulder, stopping him from sacrificing himself. With a powerful push, he sends his ally into battle, yelling for him to advance. The orc warrior charges with all his might against the enemy general. The red tribe's leader watches his opponent's swift charge. He tries to call for a pause, but it's too late. With a single precise move, Karak finishes off the opposing general. The enemy's lifeless body falls to the cave floor, surprising his soldiers. The remaining warriors panic, but are ordered not to escape. A system notification announces that the merits of the victory belong to the king. Immediately after, 3 level-up notices appear before the boy. The prince is surprised by the absurd amount of experience he received. Karak stares at his still glowing hand, questioning the source of that power. Even after the fight, the golden energy continues to emanate from his body. The guard turns slowly to his leader, waiting for an explanation. Seeing the smile on the prince's face, he suspects he is the cause of it all. Back at the camp, the orcs celebrate their victory around a bonfire. In the tent, the young man desperately searches for the logout button on the menu. He tries to stay calm to reflect on two possible hypotheses. The first is that a critical bug in the real world has trapped him in virtual reality. The second, as insane as it sounds, is that this is reality, not a game. Maybe he had been transported into the story or to an identical world. The realistic scenery and self-aware NPCs reinforce this suspicion. Even stranger is the lack of any censorship common in games. The thought of actually dying in this place terrifies him. Striving to remain rational, he reminds himself that he was born a privileged prince. He then calls for Karak, who appears at the tent's entrance. Outside, the guard asks why the prince wants a training duel. The boy explains that he needs to know his protector's level to prepare himself. Holding a training sword, he gets into a combat stance. The orc states there's no need to worry, as he will go easy on him. The prince, however, scolds him for speaking inappropriately to a member of royalty. He demands to be fought for real and moves in to strike first. Karak raises his weapon, ready for the impact. The prince's initial blow fails to hit him. The young man's flurry of strikes has no effect on his opponent. Even when a huge boulder shatters against the guard, he shows no pain. With a single swing of his weapon, Karak hurls the prince away in a gust of wind. The boy falls to his knees. Worried, the orc asks if he's okay, scolding himself for using too much force. A system notification then appears, informing him that the basic swordsmanship skill has been acquired. The boy wonders when he could have learned how to handle a sword. Suddenly, a memory awakens, bringing clarity about how this world works. Just as it happened with telekinesis, he realizes he can gain skills by taking direct hits. The guard suggests ending the training, but is interrupted by his leader, who firmly refuses. The prince gets up and plants his feet on the ground. With a confident smile, he declares that this was just the beginning. Shooter Ignis rushes forward, brandishing his sword for another attack. The prince's blade clashes with the orcs, sending sparks flying from the force of the impact. Karak watches in surprise, realizing his opponent's movements are much better now. The warrior wonders why the boy seems so clumsy at first, since his skill couldn't have improved so suddenly. Another clash of swords echoes across the training grounds as the duel continues. The young man crouches and slides across the ground, keeping his focus entirely on his adversary. With a defiant look, he asks if his performance isn't half bad now. The prince then asks the orc's level, who replies that the last time he checked, it was 21. Shooter repeats the number under his breath, reflecting on the information. A status window shows his own level is 7. But he believes he can catch up soon. Unlike him, people in this world need an appraisal spell to check their levels. The ability to see his stats and distribute points to strengthen them is a huge advantage. In the fight, the boy leaps toward his opponent with his sword raised. During the aerial attack, he prepares a precise strike against Karak. A thought about just getting stronger is quickly dismissed with a no. The right conclusion is that he can evolve much faster than anyone else. This story belongs to the demonic arc of the book, Night Saga. The plot follows Zephyr's journey to surpass his siblings and become the Demon King. Despite many events until the end, the most important thing is his ascension to the throne. The turning point comes in the year 517, when Zephyr kills all his siblings to achieve his goal. The word all implies he will also be killed, but since the current year is 512, there's still time. His priority becomes preventing this future, and the most effective way is to surpass Zephyr's strength. Karak finds him and asks what he's doing there, while the prince wonders if something has happened. The orc mentions an important meeting scheduled for today, leaving the young man confused. His guard hurries him, saying everyone is waiting, but he doesn't seem to recall the appointment. They both arrive at a camp surrounded by a wooden palisade. Sitting at the table, the prince lets out an awkward laugh in front of the others. Two figures in front of him comment, surprised that he arrived early. The seventh prince, Chris Moonlight, asks him not to be so formal since they are siblings. The eighth princess, Caitlin Moonlight, justifies the formality by saying it's their first time meeting. Chris suggests he call them by their names, and the boy agrees awkwardly. They are the children of Elaine Moonlight, the fourth queen and leader of the lycanthropes, who are also a problem in the game. 1 year before the massacre, a crucial event changes their fate. Both end up killed by Zephyr and the other children of the Demon King. The tragedy is linked to the secret of Caitlin Moonlight's birth. The truth is, the princess is an illegitimate child. Caitlin scolds him for fighting without following the plan, and the young man justifies himself by saying he didn't expect to find enemies. The princess decides to inspect him to make sure he's alright. She gets closer to check for injuries, surprising him with the unexpected gesture. His sister warns him to be more careful, reminding him he's the weakest of them all, and Shutra apologizes. The prince questions her concern, finding the closeness between the Demon King's children odd. Chris also warns him he'll get a serious scolding if he does anything dangerous again. The boy wonders if deep down his siblings might actually be kind. Shooter Ignis remains thoughtful as he processes the unusual situation. A memory about lycanthropes having many aura users makes him wonder if he can learn the technique. just as he did with other skills. He turns to his brother and says he has a favorite ask. With a confident smile, he asks Chris to hit him with a strike. They both react with expressions of pure shock and disbelief at his proposal. The scene shifts from the sunny camp to a dark landscape. Rocky mountains stretch beneath a reddish, lifeless sky. In the midst of battle, the demon general Bandal sends an enemy flying with a punch. The chaotic field shows orcs fighting an army of red-skinned demons. The general spins his body and attacks multiple adversaries at once. Two demons charge forward to attack the figure with glowing eyes. Bandal hits another opponent with a devastating blow that sends him flying. One of the enemy soldiers manages to pierce the general's arm with a blade. The army's leader becomes enraged by the wound he sustained. The creature that attacked him retreats in pure terror. Bandal smashes the ground with force, releasing a shockwave that hits everyone around. The general orders that no enemy be spared and promises a reward to whoever gets the most kills. The orc army charges forward in a fury, brandishing axes against their adversaries. Successive explosions light up the mountainous battle scene. Shutra finds himself alone in a dark, empty space, not understanding how he got there. A woman with long white hair and a mysterious gaze appears amidst a golden light. The prince turns upon noticing the formation of two dark silhouettes. He wonders who those figures are, as he doesn't remember them from the knight's saga story. The woman from before now appears right behind the boy, who eyes her suspiciously. The young man's face reveals surprise and confusion at the strange events. A sudden, intense golden light floods the area. Lying in bed, Shutra opens his eyes and stares at the ceiling, completely disoriented. The boy sits up and puts a hand to his head, wondering if it was all just a dream. Karak suddenly appears at his side and asks if he's awake, making the prince scream in surprise. Shutra recoils on the bed, startled, while the guard simply comments that he seems fine. The orc asks why he asked the princess to hit him, mentioning that he was mumbling afterward. The prince looks at himself in confusion, noticing a faint aura of power surrounding his body. A notification confirms he has obtained aura level 1, and the young man celebrates finally being able to feel it. The guard asks if it's possible to awaken an aura just by being hit by it, and the prince confirms it's something like that. The revelation explains the sudden energy he showed against the Thunder Tribe, and he confirms the suspicion. The prince asks if anything happened while he was asleep, and his companion confirms that something did. The orc informs him that the main force also defeated the Thunder Tribe, leaving the young man confused. Believing he and his siblings were the main force, the boy is corrected and asks who is in command. General Bandal's name is revealed, causing an immediate shocked reaction from the prince. A memory from the game surfaces, showing that Bandal is one of the strongest and also one of his favorite subordinates. A sudden realization makes him widen his eyes, believing this could be his big chance. The general only becomes Zephyr's subordinate in the year 515, which means he hasn't joined his brother yet. With a cunning smile, the young man decides he will recruit him to his side before anyone else can. Thanks to his knowledge of the game, he knows everything about the general, from the rewards he appreciates to his talents. The most important part of winning him over, however, will be defeating him in a direct duel. With all this information, he believes he can get Bandal as a subordinate before Zephyr and concludes it's worth a try. The prince declares with conviction that his first step will be to make General Bandal his new subordinate. At Caitlin's camp, a cry of surprise echoes through the tents. Shutra reveals an energy sphere to his siblings, who are shocked to discover he reached the first level of aura emission in just one day. The prince thinks with a smile that this result was expected, as he had invested all his points into the new skill. The decision wasn't rushed, since aura enhances physical abilities and proves more useful than telekinesis. Chris still doubts it's possible and questions if his brother's Ganharva race has anything to do with it. The older brother then asks if he can create an underground map, leaving the boy confused by the request. The young man says no, but explains he has a minimap and asks for a pen and paper to draw what he sees. Outside, activity continues as usual at the military camp. With the map in hand, Chris excitedly praises him, calling him a genius as he hugs him. Caitlin explains that with the enemies defeated, they can use the underground tunnels the rest of the tribe doesn't know about. Chris turns to his younger brother and states that there's another task he needs to complete. The scene shifts to a landscape of green mountains under a sunny sky. Leading a patrol of orcs through the forest, the prince wonders if the mission is just to scout the area again. One of the soldiers comments that it's good to have reinforcements, and another replies that it's all thanks to their hard work. As they advance, the group finds two hooded figures blocking the path. The prince recognizes his sister Caitlin and her companion under the hoods of their robes. He questions the reason for their disguise, but the princess silences him with a gesture. Caitlin reveals she's been following him in secret to ensure his safety in case something happens. The young woman states she will only intervene in the face of real danger, so the achievement will be credited to him. The other hooded figure introduces herself as Sira, the aide, and the prince greets her. The princess tells him not to worry about them, as they will be following along, and the young man agrees. The group arrives at the entrance of a dark, cold cave in the mountains. They all walk together into the underground tunnel in single file. One of the orcs asks why the caves are empty, guessing the dwarves took everything of value. The prince recalls the weapons they found earlier, and Kara concludes they weren't considered valuable. The patrol moves through the darkness of the cave, lighting the way with a torch. The bodyguard warns of an approaching noise, and Shutra confirms he can hear it too, The minimap displays several moving dots heading their way, confirming the presence of enemies. Quickly, the prince accesses his inventory to prepare for the confrontation. A light spell potion is revealed, an item he brought for this very situation. He instructs his guard to tell everyone to close their eyes on his signal. The two position themselves at the cave entrance, waiting for what's to come. Dozens of pairs of red eyes glow in the depths of the darkness. A swarm of stone spiders, monsters with a paralyzing venom, charges out of the tunnel. Shutra yells for everyone to close their eyes immediately. The boy throws the light potion toward the advancing monsters. The vial shatters in midair, releasing all the light energy contained within. An intense explosion completely illuminates the dark cave. The creatures shriek in pain, disoriented by the sudden flash. The young man orders the attack, explaining that the spiders are useless when exposed to light. The army of orcs charges forward in a fury to attack the now vulnerable monsters. The warriors begin to slay the stone spiders with their sharp blades. The rest of the patrol joins the fight, crushing the creatures with their axes. Shutra watches the battle from a distance as the aura glows around him. A glance at the map confirms that stone spiders always hunt in groups. The map shows a larger central dot, indicating that every swarm needs a leader. The prince orders Karak to accompany him to defeat the boss, and the guard agrees. The two carve a path through the swarm, while the other orcs continue to fight. They both push deeper into the cave, leaving the main battle behind. The pair finally finds a giant, multi-eyed spider, the leader of the swarm. The orc warrior leaps forward in a rage, raising his axe to strike the creature. The blow hits the monster's head, but the blade ricochets with a bright spark, causing no damage. Karak is stunned to realize his strongest attack was useless. The axe barely managed to scratch the creature's exoskeleton, which was as tough as steel. The prince despairs, remembering the weapon can't pierce that shell. He knows the monster's weakness is fire, but he hasn't mastered that type of magic yet. The giant spider turns its attention to the orc, who recoils in surprise. The creature rears up over the warrior, preparing a deadly attack. The young man yells for Karak to use fire, but the guard desperately replies, asking where he could get it. A mysterious voice suddenly calls out, ordering Shutra to raise his sword. The prince's blade ignites in golden flames, leaving him shocked by the power. The young man can hardly believe he's wielding real magic. His sister Caitlin reveals she is the source of the spell and asks if that's enough for the fight. The giant spider lunges with its fangs bared to attack the boy. With a flaming sword in hand, Shutra turns and prepares for the confrontation. The prince's determined gaze meets the creature's multiple eyes in an instant. The monster strikes a powerful blow that makes the cave floor tremble and crack. In a quick leap, the boy dodges and prepares his own attack in midair. The special attack Burning Blade cuts through the enemy, leaving a trail of fire behind. The blade's flames completely engulf the giant spider, resulting in a fiery explosion. The prince watches the monster's remains burn on the cavern floor. A crackling golden aura surrounds the young man's body after his victory. Level up notifications appear around him as the energy strengthens him. A status window opens, revealing he has finally reached level 9. Caitlin approaches and asks about the strange light that emanated from him. The boy deflects, claiming it's a blessing from his Gandharva heritage. His sister then questions his ability to fight the creatures, and he lies, saying he read about them in books. Karak interrupts, drawing his attention to something further inside the cave. The group finds a large metal door carved into the stone wall. The double doors open slowly, revealing a new passage. The team enters a wide, torch-lit stone hall. Shutra looks at the floor with an expression of surprise and recognition. He identifies a massive, glowing magic circle on the floor as a city portal. The guard asks if he knows what it is, and the prince replies that he has a hunch. He recognizes the pattern on the floor as dwarven in style. A memory from the game reveals that while playing as the hero, he saw a few portals, but never as Zephyr. He deduces that injecting mana into a nearby orb should activate the portal. The boy turns to his sister and says it might be a portal, surprising her. Based on the design, Caitlin agrees with his theory and suggests looking for inscriptions to find its destination. Kara calls to the prince, pointing to letters carved on a plaque on the wall. Shutra and his sister approach to look at the inscription. The letters on the plaque are identified as dwarven characters, not the common demonic script. When questioned by Karak, the princess replies that she can't read dwarven script. Sira also confirms she can't read the text on the wall. Suddenly, Shutra reads aloud, Gishka Mountains, Portal No 2. The prince continues reading, revealing that it's connected to Portal No 3. Shutra is confused, wondering how he can read Dwarven script. A system notification informs him that he has acquired the Dwarven language skill, surprising him with this new way of learning. The bodyguard asks in disbelief if the prince can really read it, and the young man confirms with a smile. His sister asks since when he could read Dwarven script and what else is written there. The prince translates the bottom part, explaining that mana must be infused to activate the portal. The boy then asks his sister to inject some mana, and she asks why he doesn't do it himself. With a lame excuse, the young man says he's still clumsy, and the princess agrees to do it. Caitlin places her hand on the stone orb, which begins to glow with an intense blue light. The energy sphere pulses with power as the portal begins to manifest in the hall. An intense light emanates from the center of the magic circle, expanding rapidly. A large holographic map of the Gishka Mountains emerges from the orb. The map displays their current location and that of portal number 3, and the prince confirms there must be dwarven tunnels there. Karak realizes this is an advantage as the enemy tribe is positioned in front of the mountains, allowing for a surprise attack from behind. The princess decides to call it a day to discuss the new information with her brother. Back at the camp, the discovery of the portal leaves everyone surprised and excited about the new possibility. Chris enthusiastically hugs his brother, calling him a true blessing to the group. The older prince offers a reward, saying he will grant anything the boy desires. Despite the young man's refusal, his brother insists on rewarding him as a leader and older relative. He is left speechless, feeling pressured by his elder's insistence. The boy asks if he can make a somewhat irrational request, and Chris becomes even more curious. Shutra finally reveals his desire to learn the art of the beast god fist. The sudden request leaves his older brother completely shocked and with a serious expression. The young man explains that because of his level, he can't use weapons properly yet, but techniques are different. The art of the beast god fist is a powerful S-rank martial art passed down through the lycanthrope royal family. Seeing the reaction, Shutra backs down, saying he understands if it's a difficult request, feigning that he expected a refusal. To the boy's surprise, his brother agrees to teach him, leaving him speechless. Chris clarifies that obviously he won't be able to teach the family's secret techniques. He offers, however, to teach the aura part, and the prince excitedly asks if it's true. The older brother asks if that's a good enough gift, but the young man remains silent. Shutra quickly gestures and assures him that's not it at all, stating the gift is absolutely perfect. Chris says the boy's name to get his full attention. The older prince asks if from now on he can consider him a true brother. The word brother catches Shutra by surprise, and he reflects on the meaning of this new bond. The elder also thinks about the deep meaning of that word. With a slight smile, Shutra replies that he likes the idea of being brothers. The two shake hands, sealing the beginning of their new alliance. Chris and Caitlin look at their new ally with satisfied and confident expressions. The boy smiles back and suggests they work together from now on. A system notification confirms that a normal alliance has been established with Chris and Caitlin Moonlight. The scene shifts to a mountain range under a late afternoon sky. At the Scarlet Thunder Tribe's camp, movement continues among the tents. Two red-skinned tribe members stand guard at one of the entrances. One of the warriors comments mockingly that they wouldn't have come all this way without a purpose. The camera reveals a figure kneeling on a magic circle, as the guard mentions our princess. The prisoner is identified as the 6th princess, Felicia Doomblade. A look at his stats shows his charisma is lower than the others. Sitting in his tent, the prince realizes that, unlike his other stats, his charisma now only increases by 1 point per level. He wonders why, recalling that in the original game, appearance and charisma were separate stats. Appearance measured beauty, while charisma determined how likable a character was to others. The boy accepts the change, since his overall growth rate has been good so far. More importantly, he's about to reach level 10 and expects a major improvement. In the story of Night Saga, Zephyr and Loch gain a level in their unique skills upon reaching level 10. The young man believes the same will happen to him, but he's interrupted by Karak, who calls him from the tent's entrance. His guard informs him that everything is ready to go, and the prince confirms their departure. The orc comments on the boy's good mood, but he denies that anything special happened. The two leave the tent and meet the orc army waiting for them outside. The troops are assembled before their leader, ready to follow his orders. With a confident smile, Shutra gives the command for everyone to start marching. The group travels toward a mountain range under a clear blue sky. Their journey leads them back to the entrance of the rocky cave they had previously explored. Inside the caves, several orcs and lycans fight side by side against the remaining spiders. The army pushes forward, clearing a path toward the large metal door at the end of the tunnel. Shutra's group finally reaches the portal hall, where others are already waiting for them. The older prince asks the lycan mages if their investigation is complete. One of the mages, who has wolf-like features, confirms the portal is connected to the Eska River in the Gishka Mountains. The lycan assures them there are no problems and that the dwarves' construction is, as expected, very sturdy. Chris smiles at the news and gives the order for everyone to prepare to move out. The two mages join their hands over the orb, channeling their energy to activate it. The stone sphere glows intensely with a powerful bluish light. A large, oval portal opens in the center of the room, revealing a rocky landscape on the other side. Karak and his prince watch the scene with expressions of complete awe and admiration. Shutra can hardly believe he's seeing a real working portal right in front of him. His sister hurries him along, asking what he's waiting for to go through the portal. The boy runs to join the group, eager to see what awaits them. As they step through the portal, the team emerges into a new environment, surrounded by reddish rocks. The prince looks at the rocky landscape, completely confused by what he sees. From the top of a cliff, the group observes a massive enemy camp set up in the valley. Chris confirms with satisfaction that, just as he expected, he found the main camp. The leader estimates about 5,000 troops and decides the priority of the rear attack will be to destroy their supplies. The plan is for General Bandal to create a distraction from the front, while the infiltration units burn the food depots. One of the hooded companions interrupts, saying something seems strange about their movements. A closer look reveals there aren't enough troops in the camp, and they wonder if an attack has already begun. A distant noise catches Shutra's attention, and he looks up, alert. Karak comments that the sound seems to be a battle happening far away. His older brother instructs the boy to focus his aura into his eyes to see better. The young man concentrates, channeling his energy into his vision. Using his aura, he can make out a fight happening in the distance between two groups. Caitlin recognizes the Thunder Tribe, but can't identify the others, who are not General Bandol's men. Shutra realizes the scale of the fight is too small to be a clash between armies. His enhanced vision shows a white-haired figure fighting alone against several members of the enemy tribe. The white-haired combatant fiercely defends herself against one of the enemy tribe's warriors. The group watches the scene from a distance, and one of them questions if the fighters could be dark elves. Caitlin turns to her younger brother, who confirms the warrior's identity and mentions they ride drakes. Chris points to the battlefield and alerts everyone that the enemy troops are retreating. The tribe's warriors flee at high speed, raising suspicion that their commander has been defeated. The group remains confused, wondering why the fight ended so abruptly. Shutra reflects in silence, trying to understand why the Dark Elves would be in that location. Back at the camp, the sun sets over the tents and the wooden palisade. A holographic projection of General Bandol appears, saying he heard they found the dwarves' portal. The general praises the prince's army and asks, curious, how they knew about the portal's existence. Chris gives all the credit for the discovery to Shutra, but the boy claims it was just a stroke of luck. Bandol addresses the 9th prince, assuring him that this time he will be properly rewarded at the Demon King's castle. The Lycan prince changes the subject and asks the general about a small skirmish that occurred in front of the Thunder Tribe's camp. The commander replies that it was probably the Dark Elves, who joined the battle of their own free will. The group's leader asks if they aren't reinforcements from the castle, but Bandol explains that their plan to join the main army failed. Bandol's holographic projection informs them they have a bigger problem, and the Lycan prince asks what it is. The general reveals that the leader of the Dark Elves' independent unit was captured by the Scarlet Thunder Tribe. The young prince interrupts to ask who exactly is the commander of that independent unit. The commander states, through the hologram, that it's someone they know very well. The leader's identity is revealed to be the 6th princess, Felicia Doomblade, their sister. The news leaves Chris and Caitlin completely frozen, with expressions of pure shock. The 6th princess, Felicia Doomblade, is the daughter of Sylvia Doomblade, the 3rd queen and princess of the Dark Elves, as well as the twin sister of the 5th prince. Shutra recalled that in the game, Felicia belonged to the 4th princess's faction, which always marked her as an enemy in his memory. Her appearance at that moment raised the question of whether she was interfering to gain some kind of advantage. Chris then asks aloud if the Scarlet Thunder Tribe even knows that the captured Dark Elf is Felicia. Through the hologram, Bandol replies that they haven't been able to confirm that information yet. Shutra then questions the plan of action, and the general states that a rescue will only happen if they are attacked first. The Lycan prince firmly declares that he has no intention of bowing down or negotiating with them. The commander agrees and promises to gather more data before contacting them again, ending the call. As soon as the holographic projection vanishes, the three are left alone in the room. Chris then cracks a smile and comments on how their brilliant older sister is now a prisoner. Caitlin turns to him and retorts that if Felicia is alive, they must rescue her, but her brother warns it won't be easy. He argues that a rescue attempt could easily lead to losses for their group. Even so, she grabs his arm and insists they have to save her, because she's their sister. The 7th prince remains silent, just observing the situation with a serious expression. He begins to speak, saying he understands the difficulty of the decision, but they need to consider the facts. The young prince remains silent, just watching his siblings' reaction before him. In a military camp set up among the mountains, the leaders gather for a strategy meeting. Inside the tent, Chris stands at the head of the table and states that the plan is simple. Using a map, he details that as soon as General Bandol draws out the main enemy force, they will attack the camp from the rear. Next, the prince decrees that he himself will advance to the center of the base, while Caitlin and Shutra will lead their own squads on the mission. Shutra interrupts to confirm if the mission is the rescue, and the prince confirms, adding that first, they will burn the armory and the food depot. However, he orders everyone to retreat immediately if the situation becomes dangerous, as they cannot lose any more lives for Felicia's sake. The princess reacts to her brother's words, but Chris cuts her off and demands silence, reminding her that he is the commander. Outraged, Caitlin shouts that Felicia is family, but he just stares at her without saying a word. Shutra realizes that the 7th prince seems to have no intention of rescuing his sister. Under the night sky, the attack operation finally begins. The troops advance through the mountainous terrain toward their target. With a battle cry, the demon army charged into battle at full force. One of the warriors reinforces the command to defeat everyone from the Scarlet Thunder Tribe. High on a cliff, Chris and his squad watch the enemy camp. From his high vantage point, he analyzed the layout of the camp, which was gathered around a large central bonfire. Meanwhile, the tribe's guards patrolled the perimeter between the tents and lit torches. With his eyes fixed on the target, the prince waited for the agreed-upon signal to start the attack. Suddenly, large explosions hit the main force of the camp, kicking off the first phase of the plan. The surprise attack threw the warriors of the Scarlet Thunder tribe into complete chaos and disarray. Leading the offensive, General Bandol advanced with his army across the battlefield. The commander shouted the order for his soldiers to defeat all enemies. Far from there, Karak questioned Shutra why they weren't moving yet, but the prince told him to wait for the signal. In the heart of the battle, orcs and demons clashed in violent, direct combat. Bandol's troops charged forward, breaking through the enemy defenses with full force. Caught by surprise, the tribe's general watched the enemy troops advance toward him. He remained silent for a moment, analyzing the strength of the unexpected attack. With that, the order to retreat was given, and the troops began to fall back amidst the fire. From the top of the cliff, the Lycan prince watched the chaos spread through the enemy camp, just as planned. Seizing the opportunity, Chris turned to his squad and gave the command to prepare to advance. Meanwhile, Shutra confirmed with his squad that they were to execute the mission exactly as planned. On his signal, Chris led the charge and the entire group ran towards the enemy camp. The sudden assault caught the tribe's guards completely off guard in the midst of the chaos. Then the Lycan warriors leaped upon their adversaries, violently clearing a path. In the middle of the run, Caitlin shouted for Shutra to be careful, and he yelled back for her to do the same. Without breaking stride, the young prince consulted a holographic map to get his bearings inside the camp. He immediately pointed the way and ordered his squad to advance to the left, towards the food depot. Leading the charge, Karak reinforced the order for his warriors to defeat anyone who crossed their path. In the midst of the clash, one of Bandol's demons blocked an attack and took down an enemy warrior with a single blow. The demon soldier lunged forward with a powerful strike against the opponent in front of him. Suddenly, Karak noticed a new threat approaching and paused for a moment. Before the demon could strike him, Shutra threw a dagger that hit the target dead on. The precise move revealed his newly acquired dagger-throwing skill. After the hit, he flashed a brief, confident smile before moving on. Confused, Karak asked when he had learned to do that, but Shutra just replied that it was nothing special and urged the group forward. As they neared the food depot, the warrior asked if they should set it on fire, and the prince confirmed that they should stick to the plan. Suddenly, he realized that Felicia might be trapped inside and could die in the fire. With that, he changed his mind and said they needed to find her first, asking Karak to wait a moment. Immediately, the young man activated a holographic map to try and pinpoint her exact location. His special ability should register Felicia as a neutral character, revealing her location on the map. As soon as a specific point glowed on the interface, he found what he was looking for. He then shouted for Karak to follow him and ran in the direction indicated by the system. Arriving at a tent, he forced his way inside without hesitation to check the interior. Inside, the prince looked around for his sister until a voice called his name. In that same instant, he turned in surprise toward the voice. The tent revealed Felicia Doomblade kneeling on the ground and bound by chains within an energy circle. The sixth princess then looked up at him and asked what exactly he was doing there. Shutra approached to release her chains, telling her to be quiet and that they would talk later. He added that the place was dangerous and they needed to get out of there as fast as possible. Felicia just watched him in silence as he worked to free her from her bonds. As soon as he freed her, he led her out of the tent, saying they needed to regroup with Chris and Caitlin. Surprised, she stopped and asked if their other two siblings had also come to rescue her. He confirmed, then asked if perhaps they shouldn't have come to save her, leaving her speechless. Just as the princess began to explain the situation, Karak appeared, shouting that enemies were closing in from all sides. Immediately, the young man told her to follow him, and she agreed to join him in their escape. The elf then noticed the change in his tone and asked since when he had started calling her by her name. Without answering, the prince just kept running away from the danger, leaving her behind for a moment. Suddenly, she sensed a threat and screamed for him to look behind him. Before he could react, an energy blast struck him squarely in the chest from behind. The impact threw him forward as he tried to withstand the damage from the blow. As he lay on the ground, Felicia screamed his name while flames engulfed everything. The fire from the attack spread across the campground floor. In the midst of the chaos, the princess screamed Shutra's name, watching the scene unfold. Right after, the demon that had attacked him turned towards her and advanced. The elf just stared back at it, showing no sign of retreat. Suddenly, she noticed a movement coming from behind the enemy. An explosion of energy erupted on the scene, catching everyone by surprise. Though she didn't understand, Felicia watched a silhouette rise up from amidst the flames. The figure then took a step forward, an aura of energy forming around it. Soon, Shutra was revealed standing, wielding an energy bow as new skills were acquired. With his new power, he simply showed a confident smile to his adversaries. He then fired a single arrow that caused a massive explosion in the middle of the enemy army. He then prepared his next shot with a smirk on his face. Shutra continued the assault, launching several arrows at once against the advancing enemies. The energy projectiles hit their targets dead on, causing multiple explosions in succession. With the bow in hand, he celebrated, confirming that this was real magic. Excited, he reveled in the incredible power of his new skill, even though it was only level 1. Suddenly, an ice barrier rose from the ground, blocking an attack coming his way. Confused, he watched the ice crystals that appeared out of nowhere to protect him. Soon, an enemy archer was revealed atop a tower, preparing another shot with an energy arrow. The prince realized the true target was Felicia, who was running toward him to see if he was okay. He immediately pushed her away and ordered her not to come any closer. The princess watched him, confused by her brother's sudden action. In that same instant, a shower of ice projectiles rained down from the sky towards Shutra. He faced the imminent attack, bracing himself for the impact. With a smile, the prince decided that this new power would be his as well. The ice arrow struck him dead on and exploded on contact. A thick, freezing mist spread across the area after the explosion. The young prince's silhouette remained visible amidst the icy fog. Shutra then emerged from the mist, confirming he had absorbed the attack and acquired the ice arrow skill. Then his expression changed as he noticed something unexpected happening in the system. The impact of the attack had dragged him across the ground, but he managed to prop himself up with an ice dagger. Immediately, a system notification alerted him that his life was in extreme danger. With his health so low, he realized he wouldn't survive another hit like that. Suddenly, Felicia approached and called out to him, making him look in her direction. The princess then asked who exactly had asked him to save her, leaving him speechless. She then yelled that he was the weakest of the siblings and in no position to save anyone. Her reaction left him completely confused, unable to understand what was happening. Right after, she questioned since when he had been able to use magic. The enemy was defeated and Shutra realized she had completely misunderstood the situation. Before he could explain, Felicia snatched the ice dagger he had received. The young prince just looked down, surprised by his sister's unexpected action. A healing energy began to emanate, enveloping the wound on his chest. He watched the energies glow as the healing power worked on his body. In just a few seconds, the wound on his chest closed completely, leaving no trace. A system window then confirmed he had acquired the healing skill and that his wound was healed. Felicia asked if he felt better, and Shutra said yes, thanking her for the help and almost mistakenly mentioning his blood. Suddenly, a loud noise drew their attention, and they both turned towards the sound. A huge creature with a red aura emerged from the destruction. Shutra identified it as a blood ogre, and she immediately asked if they needed to get past it to escape. He confirmed that they did, and the two watched as the monster approached their position. With the ogre charging toward them, the two prepared for the inevitable fight. The blood ogre slammed its fist into the ground, forcing Shutra and Felicia to leap back to escape the impact. The young prince was surprised by the monster's speed, despite its immense size. Next, the princess asked him to buy her some time to use her magic, but he questioned how he could do that. Another blow from the creature shattered the ground, forcing them both to retreat out of range again. The young man then agreed to draw the enemy's attention. He shouted for her to prepare her spell, using a term she didn't understand. At that moment, he called out to Karak, who responded from a distance, telling him to use the same strategy as last time. Without wasting a moment, the prince opened his system inventory to retrieve a specific item. Looking at the window, he confirmed he could now use the dwarven dagger he had stored. As soon as he made his choice, the weapon materialized in his hand with an aura of energy. He pointed the blade at the ground, preparing to activate his skill. Without hesitation, he plunged the dagger into the earth and unleashed a wave of power. Then he shouted the name of the technique and channeled the energy toward his ally. An intense aura completely enveloped the orc's body, boosting his strength. With his newfound power, Karak let out a roar and readied himself for battle. The display of power surprised the blood ogre, which hesitated for a moment. Empowered, the warrior charged directly at the enemy to engage. The creature tried to crush him with a punch, but he blocked the blow with his axe. The impact forced the monster back for a few seconds as it reeled from the unexpected force. Immediately, Karak seized the opening and raised his weapon for a counterattack. With all of his accumulated power, he delivered a precise strike to the ogre's chest. The creature roared at the impact, feeling the damage course through its body. Meanwhile, Felicia began to float, surrounded by a shimmering aura. With her hair floating around her, she channeled her energy to prepare the spell. Next, she cast a spell that covered the ground with a slippery substance. The blood ogre tried to advance, but its feet slipped on the newly created surface. Completely off balance, the monster fell backward onto the ground. The orc seized the moment and leaped high into the air, positioning himself above the enemy. From above, he declared that this would be the end of the battle. Then he descended with a crushing blow against the creature's chest. Struck head-on, the blood ogre let out one last roar before it was defeated. The final impact crushed the monster, ending the threat for good. With victory secured, Shutra walked through the destroyed camp amidst the wreckage. With a relieved smile, he celebrated the triumph, even though he knew other enemies remained. Suddenly, an aura of energy enveloped him, and a system notification caught his attention. Immediately, an interface window appeared before his eyes, displaying new information. The notice confirmed that his level had risen to 10, and he celebrated the advancement. Soon after, another message indicated that his protagonist's skill level had also increased. With a satisfied smile, he felt the new power course through his entire body. A new gift window appeared, and he decided to open the box to check the reward. The notification revealed a passive skill capable of reducing the accuracy of projectiles fired at him. He quickly recognized it as a dodging technique against ranged attacks. The screen illustrated the skill with an image of a character dodging multiple shots at once. He then realized he could now replicate the famous protective effect reserved for protagonists. Just then, a group of enemy warriors emerged from the camp, advancing to attack. The princess shouted his name, warning him that their opponents were approaching while he was distracted. Without flinching, Felicia prepared to unleash her power against the advancing enemies. With a single command, she summoned a gale that struck the group of warriors head-on. The force of the wind was so intense that even the prince had to brace himself to avoid being swept away. Observing the phenomenon, he realized it resembled magic, but wasn't quite the same. He soon recognized the energy butterflies and confirmed it was the power of a spirit. With that, he understood that Felicia was, in fact, a talented spirit summoner. As he watched the attack unfold, a new idea sparked in his mind. With a smile, he wondered if he could also be hit by a power like that. Suddenly, a bright signal exploded in the sky, catching the attention of everyone in the camp. At the flash, the orcs looked up, surprised by the unexpected event. As soon as he identified the light, Karak announced it was a retreat command. Confused, Shutro wondered what was happening and if someone might be in danger. Seeing his ally's urgency for an order, the prince instructed him to fall back with all the troops. He then declared that he needed to go to Caitlin, leaving the orc completely stunned. Karak tried to argue, wanting to accompany him, but he insisted there was a reason for his decision and that everyone should obey. At that moment, Felicia approached and stated she would go with Shutra, surprising the orc general. She explained that she disliked being indebted and wanted to take the chance to repay her debt. Furthermore, she added that she still had some unfinished business with those enemies. After listening in silence, Karak finally agreed. He told the prince to be careful as he said goodbye. As they walked through the camp, the young woman questioned if it was really necessary to go to Caitlin. He replied that the retreat order was suspicious. Hearing his explanation, Felicia commented that he seemed very worried about his sister. Shutra just said it was natural to worry, since they were family. After that, she watched him in silence for a few moments. Their conversation was cut short by the sound of battle coming from the center of the camp. Then, a horde of muscular demons charged furiously in their direction. In the midst of the chaos, Caitlin was fighting the enemies alone, repelling their advance with her bare fists. Even surrounded, she stood firm in the face of the impending combat. Soon she launched multiple energy spheres that exploded against her opponents. The demons withstood the blast and prepared to attack all at once. Without hesitation, Caitlin materialized an energy sword in her hand to defend herself. With a precise leap, she unleashed a slash that struck all the enemies at once. Shutra and Felicia arrived just in time to see the demons lying on the ground after her counterattack. Witnessing the scene, the mage confirmed it was just as she expected, while he realized there was no reason to worry. As soon as she saw them, the princess asked her brother why he had retreated. He replied that he came to help her. Not quite understanding, she asked what he meant by that. Suddenly, Caitlin's attention turned to the person beside him. With a cry of joy, the 8th princess ran and hugged Felicia tightly. While holding her in her arms, she said she was happy to see her safe. Felicia replied that everything was fine and that her younger sister worried too much. Watching their interaction, Shutra realized the two seemed quite close. At that moment, a map interface appeared in his vision, showing the enemy troops advance. After analyzing the movement, Caitlin warned that they needed to fall back and ordered him to lead the retreat. Elsewhere, Karak's orcs were waiting around a large teleportation portal. Shortly after, someone's feet stepped into the center of the magical summoning circle. Then, Shutra, Felicia, and Caitlin stepped through the portal as the orcs watched in silence. As they walked, the 6th princess asked if it was true that the prince had found the portal, and Caitlin confirmed his crucial role in the mission. At the same time, Karak approached and commented on how much he had changed. Their conversation was interrupted by Chris's voice, announcing that everyone had returned safely. A few moments later, he appeared before the group with a confident posture. With a smile, Caitlin informed her brother that she had brought Felicia back. Right after, the princess turned to Chris and greeted him, saying it had been a while since they'd last seen each other. Before her, the 7th prince just watched her in silence for a few seconds. Finally, Chris broke the silence and greeted her back, calling her by name. The scene then shifted to a dark cave lit by torches scattered along the walls. As they walked, Chris reported that General Bandal had also won his battle, as Yakuzen retreated upon seeing the camp in flames. Not recognizing the name, Shutra asked who he was, and Caitlin explained he was the chief of the Scarlet Lightning tribe. Hearing this, Felicia asked if Yakuzen had surrendered, but Chris clarified that the enemy had merely fled and could regroup. He then announced they would attack Karam's forces the next day to prevent the two armies from joining. Changing the subject, the prince asked Felicia what had brought her to that place. She answered that she was researching nearby ruins and was captured while trying to help in the battle. Suspicious, Chris questioned if that was really the truth. Faced with his doubt, Felicia retorted, asking if he thought she was lying. The two stared at each other in silence for a few moments. After a moment, he gave in and told her to drop the subject and get some rest. With a word of thanks, Felicia agreed, and Chris dismissed everyone to recover their strength. A short time later, the soldiers were already gathered around a campfire, enjoying their meal. Away from the group, Shutra observed his skills window with satisfaction. As he analyzed his techniques in a corner of the cave, his name was suddenly called. Turning around, he found Felicia standing at the entrance, asking if she could come in for a moment. He asked what brought her there at this hour, but she just watched him in silence. Then the princess began to walk slowly toward him. When she stopped in front of him, she called his name once more. Unexpectedly, her hand shot out and firmly gripped the collar of his clothes. Caught off guard by the sudden gesture, the prince couldn't react. A moment later, Felicia stared at him and ordered him to obey. Utterly bewildered, Shutra could only question the order. With a firm hand on his collar, Felicia repeated that he needed to take off his clothes. Still confused, the prince asked why. She then asked if he wouldn't let her treat his condition properly. He could only respond with a look of utter confusion. With that, Felicia explained that what she had done before was nothing more than first aid. Soon after, she revealed she wanted to use healing magic again, as he might have internal injuries. The young woman mentioned the light his body emitted earlier and asked if there was a problem, but he said it happens sometimes. Shutra changed the subject and declared he had a request for her. With a smile, he moved closer and stated it was something only Felicia could do. Immediately after, 3 new healing skills appeared in his status window. Satisfied with the result, the prince got dressed again and checked his new skills. The scene revealed that he learned 3 healing spells after she used them on him at his request. A short time later, he met with Caitlin and remarked that the day of his training had finally arrived. With a smile, the 8th princess announced he would learn the werewolf branch of the Beast Fist art. The Beast Fist art was introduced as the symbolic martial art of the lycanthropes. With this, Shutra understood that the werewolf style was the basis of that technique and the reason Caitlin was teaching him. Next, she explained that the style used both internal and external aura, and that she would show him the basics of the internal aura. Following her instructions, he closed his eyes and an aura began to manifest in his body. He soon confirmed that he could already feel a flow of power coursing inside him. The energy was described as the life force flowing through every part of his body. It was then revealed that the aura at its peak became the very power of the soul. As soon as the energy intensified, Shutra immediately opened his eyes. With the change, a system notification appeared, informing him that he had acquired the passive skill, Protagonist Physique. The description said it increased training efficiency and unlocked special traits as he leveled up. Reading the contents, he realized it was another extremely powerful skill. A comparison showed that the new ability was on par with his other passive training skills. He soon understood that the system added new functions as his skills evolved. A smile appeared on his face at the discovery. With his fists clenched, he finally realized what it meant to be the protagonist until Caitlin called out to him. Brought back to reality, he heard his sister ask what he was doing and apologized for the distraction. Then she announced that the training for the Beast Fist art would now begin in earnest. As soon as the training began, he acquired the skill and manifested the aura in his fists. Impressed by his speed and precision, Caitlin praised his performance on the basic moves. Looking at his own hands, Shutra understood the power of this new martial art. Just as Caitlin was about to teach the next technique, a soldier came running and called out to her. The messenger hurried over and reported that something terrible had happened. Far away, Chris informed the group that Karam's unit had disappeared. Gathered around a map, everyone reacted with surprise to the news. Faced with the gravity of the situation, Chris concluded the enemy had discovered their plan, and Caitlin asked what their next move would be. Based on General Bandal's information, he pointed to the exact spot where Yakuzan and Karam were supposed to meet. After analyzing the terrain, Shutra agreed the probability was high and they would have to take the risk. With that, Chris announced they would join forces with the general for a large-scale battle against the Scarlet Lightning tribe. The scene then shifted to the main base of the enemy's subjugation army. In the camp, General Bandal warmly welcomed Chris and praised his arrival. With a smile, Chris greeted the general and remarked that he was the same as ever. As Bandal turned to the princesses, Felicia interrupted him to ask about her subordinates. Shutra watched the interaction with a faint smile on his lips. As he faced the general, he remembered that Bandal was his favorite character from the game Night Saga. Shortly after, he stepped forward and formally introduced himself to the commander. Bandal stared at him in silence for a few moments before shaking his hand and acknowledging him as the Ninth Prince. Suddenly, Shutra's vision transformed and a white-haired woman appeared, shrouded in an intense light. The figure then revealed her different-colored eyes as she watched him. Before her, another presence engulfed in flames suddenly appeared. A warrior in red armor revealed herself completely amidst the fire. The two stared intently at each other for a moment without uttering a single word. Soon, Shutra found himself at the center of the projection of these two imposing figures. The unexpected appearance left him completely stunned by the scene. Then the symbols of conquest and war appeared before his eyes. With a jolt, he awoke and realized he was sitting on his bed. Confused, he wondered if it had all been just a dream. He soon recalled having seen the woman with the colorful eyes in another vision. Even so, he couldn't identify who the warrior in red armor was. His thoughts were interrupted by Karak, who warned that their departure was imminent. Shortly after, the two of them headed out of the tent together towards the army. Outside, the troops moved hurriedly, carrying supplies for the battle. Shutra then revealed that he had been assigned to command the left flank of the formation. The map showed that Bandal would lead the center, Chris and Caitlin would handle the right flank, and the dark elves would guard the rear. The march began and time passed quickly. Suddenly, Shutra realized where he was. It was then that he realized he was already in the middle of a vast battlefield, surrounded by thousands of soldiers. At the forefront of the central troops, General Bandal ordered them into battle formation. With a smile, he promised to teach the enemy the true meaning of suffering. Soon after, he raised his voice and commanded all troops to advance. The orcs responded immediately, marching with shields raised and weapons drawn. The general watched satisfied as the enemy forces moved towards them. However, his expression changed when a massive explosion erupted in the middle of his own troops. Stunned, he asked aloud what was happening. He looked down and saw a trail of destruction spreading rapidly across the battlefield. Suddenly, a colossal, fur-covered creature resembling a mammoth emerged, plowing its way through the ranks. Panicking, Bandal shouted that it was a swamp mammoth. As the beast advanced, blasts of energy hit it from all sides. However, it was clear that the blasts were coming from their own allies, and so the warriors of the Scarlet Lightning tribe began to fall to friendly fire. In the midst of the confusion, Shutra, alongside Karak, watched the devastation spread. Startled, he realized it was a trap and exclaimed they had been deceived. He then understood that the enemy had known everything all along as the mammoths continued their advance. The creature was a swamp mammoth of unparalleled size. Its red eyes sparked with fury, revealing it to be a terrifying monstrosity. Faced with the threat, an aura of energy emerged around Shutra. Suddenly, sharp claws tore through the ground and new beasts emerged from the earth. Before long, an army of lizardmen armed with swords joined the battle. The unexpected arrival of these enemy reinforcements left Shutra and his troops in shock. On another front, Chris realized the adversaries were just toying with his forces. Given the situation, Caitlin suggested it would be better to retreat and seek another opportunity. She warned that if they continued, their casualties would only increase until total annihilation. Chris reflected in silence for a few moments before making a decision. He soon raised his voice to get the army's attention amidst the chaos. He then ordered the mages to form a defensive barrier at the rear, while the rest prepared to retreat. With the order given, the fight between orcs and lizardmen raged on. In the midst of combat, a lizard warrior leaped towards Shutra to attack him. At the last moment, an allied orc intercepted the blow, protecting him from the enemy. Karak bellowed for everyone to hold formation, warning that any carelessness could be fatal. Shutra nodded, recognizing that this reality was far beyond a simple game. Meanwhile, Chris fought alone against the numerous enemies surrounding him. With a resolute cry, he ordered everyone to survive and return alive, no matter the cost. Sometime later, the survivors managed to regroup at a makeshift camp. At the base, the wounded were being treated with healing magic for their battle injuries. Inside a tent, Chris took the blame for the failure and regretted not being suspicious sooner. At this, General Bandal declared that their only options were to retreat or request reinforcements. Chris agreed with the assessment, stating he wouldn't risk his subordinates' lives just for the sake of pride. Just as he was preparing to give the order, Felicia interrupted him, saying she had thought of an alternative. The young woman reminded everyone that their true purpose in that region was to explore a ruin in the Gishka Mountains. Shutra recalled that in the game, the character's focus was always on research and investigation. Soon after, Felicia unrolled an ancient map on the table and pointed to the exact location. Gathered with the others, she revealed she had been studying the lair of the Earth Dragon, a ruin preserved for 1,500 years. She explained that Enkidu, a dragon born of magma, used several guardians to protect its treasure. She mentioned that the dwarves had received a special weapon from it called the anvil that gives life to thunder. It was then revealed that this relic had the power to control the guardian chimeras and cast army-level magic. She firmly slammed her hand on the table in front of everyone. Finally, Felicia declared that the only way to achieve victory was to find that relic. General Bandal then asked Felicia for the anvil's exact location, revealing the true reason for his presence. Right after, Chris Moonlight admitted he didn't know the precise location and considered the information of little use at that moment. In his assessment, he stated they couldn't risk everyone's lives on a simple treasure hunt, as the enemy could attack at any moment. Felicia immediately challenged Chris's objection. At that moment, Shutra stepped forward and assured everyone that the relic was indeed in that place. He then explained that he had found references to the anvil in a story about the hero Laksh and also in his studies on runes. Above all, he declared that he trusted Felicia completely. The princess watched him in silence without saying a word. He then turned his back to the others, positioning himself beside her. Still, Chris approached and argued that the issue wasn't trust, but the precious time they were wasting. To counter, Shutra pointed to the map and cited a similar legend from the Gandharva tribe related to that region. Based on this, he concluded there was a high probability that the entrance to the ruins was nearby. Finally, he asked them to believe him just this once, promising to put everything on the line. Soon after, Felicia summoned phantom horses capable of flight, which appeared in the sky before the group. Everyone mounted the creatures and immediately set off toward their destination. As they soared through the air, Sarah thought that at least they had finally begun the search for the anvil. Just then, Karak warned Shutra to hold on, but he assured him he wouldn't fall, as he had ridden those mounts before. The demon prince then activated an interface in front of him. Calmly, he reported that at their current speed, it would take an hour to arrive and that the minimap would make searching for the ruins easier. As they flew, his eyes turned to Felicia, who was riding a few meters ahead. A moment later, he closed his eyes, taking in the moment. The group continued their journey, flying over the territory illuminated only by the night. Suddenly, Shutra explained that he could pinpoint the anvil's location by combining maps of ancient tunnels with the current terrain. As soon as he finished, Karak and Caitlin looked at him in silence before asking if that had actually worked. Once on solid ground, the orc wanted to know what all that meant, but Chris just ordered Shutra to guide them. At that moment, Felicia intervened and declared she understood the explanation, telling him to take the lead. After a brief silence, the prince turned and ordered everyone to follow him. As they walked, the sixth princess silently observed every detail. Soon, Karak commented that everyone was following the prince without question. A short time later, the group arrived before a rock wall and found their path blocked. Facing the barrier, the orc questioned if he really knew the entrance to the ruins, as this didn't seem right. In response, Shutra asked if he had ever said they were going to the entrance. Next, he turned to Caitlin and asked her to try and open a passage with a precise strike. The princess accepted his request, while Felicia watched her every move. Soon after, Felicia asked if he really believed the relic was inside that cliff. Shutra firmly explained that according to his calculations, entering at that point would avoid a direct confrontation with the dungeon's guardians. Felicia interrupted him, questioning how he expected Caitlin to destroy the wall with just her fists. She then asked if he thought the princess was some kind of siege weapon. Felicia's hand began to gather an intense amount of energy. She then declared that ruin explorers always have a secondary specialization in destruction and explosives. The princess then fired the accumulated energy directly at the rock wall. The explosion hit the cliff with full force, its impact echoing throughout the region. Once the dust settled, a passage into the ruin was revealed before the group. Felicia observed the newly opened entrance, wondering if they had really found the place so quickly. The group entered the ruins and Karak asked about the dome-shaped structure in the center. Shutra replied that it was the anvil's final protection. Karak suggested breaking it, but Shutra warned him that doing so could damage the relic. Felicia commented that there must be some kind of mechanism to open it. She then turned to observe the rest of the room. She immediately noticed that the statues looked strange. Out of 9, only 3 were holding weapons. Caitlin suggested they might need to provide weapons to the remaining statues, but Felicia doubted it was that simple. She explained that the weapons were of dwarven make, which meant the other statues would also need dwarven weapons. Unexpectedly, Shutra revealed that he happened to have 6 of them. The demon prince explained that he couldn't use them before due to his low level, so he had stored them in his inventory. He then mentioned to Karak that, as a precaution, he had brought the weapons he found during the last tunnel expedition. Shutra asked the orc to position the heavy weapons, and Karak, though grumbling, agreed. Soon, one of the dwarven swords was placed in the hands of a stone statue. The same procedure was repeated with all the other unarmed statues around the room. As soon as the last weapon was set in place, the eyes of one of the stone guardians lit up. A beam of light connected all the statues, activating the room's central mechanism. Then the dome-shaped structure began to open before them. The group watched intently as a strong light emanated from within. Shutra kept his gaze fixed on the object being revealed. Finally, the anvil that gives life to thunder appeared in the center of the room. Once the relic appeared, Felicia explained that according to the records, one final procedure was needed to activate it. Then she instructed Shutra and Karak to stay where they were, while the others were to position themselves around the circle. The princess detailed that everyone would infuse mana into the disc clockwise, starting with her and gradually increasing the amount, and so each member took their position around the anvil. After asking the group to focus, Felicia began the ritual by releasing her energy. The others followed her lead, causing the relic to glow intensely. During the process, she ordered Shutra to push his mana a little harder. She immediately told him to maintain that intensity and not lose focus. Both of them continued channeling their energy toward the anvil. The young man struggled to maintain the flow. The demon prince focused all his strength on the ritual. At that moment, a column of energy shot out from the anvil and pierced through the dungeon ceiling. As the dust settled, Shutra observed the result of the activation. Suddenly, he found himself in an unknown place, surrounded by countless dwarves. A demonic claw emerged from the cracked earth. Soon, a chaotic battlefield between demons and dwarves revealed itself all around him. As he tried to understand the situation, an imposing voice ordered its vassals to listen. The boy turned his face toward that mysterious presence. Then dwarven warriors gathered around the demon prince. Shutra watched the scene intently. Before them all, an immense winged creature appeared in the sky. The same voice ordered them to protect the sacred nest of the great Enkidu. Next, the creature declared that he was to become the guardian of the gate. His mission would be to stand between the demon realm and the human realm. Back in reality, the young man awoke on the floor. Still in shock, he was breathing heavily from what he had witnessed. In that instant, he realized the vision could only have been of the black dragon, Enkidu. A moment later, a voice asked if he had seen it too. Walking across the room, Felicia described a massive black dragon whose body flowed like molten lava. Hearing this, Karak confirmed he had seen the same creature, and Shutra asked if everyone had shared the vision. The princess replied that it seemed so, though she still didn't know what it meant. She then turned to the anvil. Facing the relic, Felicia stated that the only certainty was that using it would reveal the truth. Then she positioned herself in front of the anvil. Her hand touched the relic's surface, leaving a trail of blood. Immediately, a wave of dark energy erupted from the anvil and engulfed her. The princess began to be consumed by the power. She gritted her teeth, resisting the impact. Seeing this, Shutra yelled her name. The demon prince then reached out, telling her to stop. He grabbed Felicia's arm and was also overtaken by the dark energy. With that, an explosion of energy erupted in the center of the room. From a distance, Karak and Caitlin screamed Shutra's and Felicia's names. As he was being consumed, the young man also screamed amidst the dark energy. It was then revealed that the mana of the Earth Dragon and Enkidu imposed a test on those who sought to claim it without permission. Next, the energy exploded over the anvil as a voice declared that to conquer meant to dominate. From afar, their two companions watched the dark energy spread throughout the room. When the explosion subsided, only an energy crystal remained on the floor. A moment later, Shutra appeared, kneeling and holding the object, with half of his face covered in darkness. His appearance had changed, and one of his eyes glowed intensely. The scene then shifts to an orc camp set up in a canyon. From atop a cliff, a lookout watched the movement below. A moment later, he raised a pair of binoculars to survey the area. As he studied the camp, he muttered about whether the fools really thought they wouldn't be discovered. He then knelt before his leader and asked if they should attack immediately. Yakuzen, chief of the Scarlet Lightning tribe, listened in silence. The commander then ordered everyone to prepare for battle. Facing his army, he declared that they were to defeat the stragglers. Shutra asked the orc to position the heavy weapons, and Karak, the grumbling, agreed. Suddenly, two of them looked up at the sky. An immense fireball then descended from the heavens toward the camp. The explosion struck the center with devastating force. Several orcs were caught directly in the blast. Then the army of the Scarlet Lightning tribe appeared before them. The red-skinned warriors charged forward in a fierce attack. Amid the chaos, Chris Moonlight found himself surrounded by the green-skinned orcs. He quickly realized that neither Caitlin nor Felicia were nearby to help him. As new explosions shook the area, Yakuzen watched from a distance. The tribe's chief mocked the demons for advancing without knowing the terrain. Soon after, he ordered his mages to finish the rest and kill them all. However, one of the mage hands was suddenly overcome by an aura. Confused, he wondered why his hand wouldn't obey. At the same moment, a giant mammoth was enveloped by the same energy, its eyes glowing. The warriors of the Scarlet Lightning tribe looked up, alarmed. Unexpectedly, the mammoth turned against its own allies and attacked them with fury. From the clifftop, Yakuzen watched chaos erupt within his ranks. The tribe leader wondered why his own forces were fighting each other. On the battlefield, Chris Moonlight also watched the rampaging mammoth. The seventh prince simply remained silent before the scene. Back in the dungeon, Shutra's hand held an object pulsing with energy. As he was enveloped by the aura, he wondered if the enemy had found the anvil. The demon prince then knelt, holding the object firmly. The dark energy materialized, taking the form of a hammer in his hand. Soon after, Asura appeared to support Felicia and revealed that the weapon was the Thunder Hammer, the anvil's counterpart. She declared that it seemed Enkidu had chosen him. Shutra glanced in their direction. Before everyone, Felicia, now with marks on her face, ordered him to use the weapon. With the hammer in hand, the young man observed the energy surrounding him. He then revealed that Enkidu's mana had shown him how to wield it. The dragon's voice echoed, explaining that to conquer and subjugate was the path to mastery. The prince raised the hammer, understanding how to use the anvil that gives life to thunder. He then declared he would start by dominating the swamp mammoth. Next, he slammed the hammer against the ground, releasing a wave of energy. On the battlefield, the giant mammoth roared, its eyes glowing with the same power. Immediately, all the mammoths turned against the Scarlet Lightning tribe and attacked. Amid the chaos, the red-skinned warriors questioned why they were suddenly being attacked. In the confusion, one of the demon's allies charged at an enemy warrior. With that, one of the red tribe's chiefs moved forward and cut down his enemies. Seeing the mammoth attacking the enemy, General Bandal concluded that the prince and princess had succeeded. Before his troops, the demon commander ordered them to kill everyone and let no adversary escape. The green-skinned orcs charged furiously at their opponents. The army of the Scarlet Lightning tribe was surrounded and attacked from all sides. From the clifftop, Yakuzen watched the chaotic battle unfolding below. His subordinate asked what was happening, but Yakuzen admitted he didn't know who was controlling that mana. The warrior then suggested they retreat and wait for another opportunity, surprising the tribe chief. At that moment, an explosion of dust erupted before them. Chris Moonlight landed in front of Yakuzen and his right-hand man. Facing the enemy chief, he declared that this seemed to be the end for him. He then offered a less painful death in exchange for his surrender, which enraged Yakuzen. The tribal leader raised his axe and promised to finish him right there. Chris's eyes glowed intensely. The seventh prince charged forward, using the fist art of the beast god. His devastating blow struck Yakuzen and his subordinate at the same time. Soon after, soldiers of the Scarlet Lightning tribe announced that their chief, Lord Yakuzen, had been killed. As the enemies fled, Chris looked at his injured hand and commented that now they just needed to go after the stragglers. He then thought they would have been in serious trouble if it weren't for those two. From the cliff top, the prince just hoped that nothing had happened to them. Back in the dungeon, a projection revealed the battle taking place outside. As Karak asked if that was the mammoth's vision, Felicia confirmed that the anvil had the power to control all the treasure's guardians. The princess then stated that with that power, the Scarlet Lightning tribe would be. Before she could finish her sentence, her body gave way and she fainted, immediately supported by Sira. Worried, Sira asked if the princess was okay, but she just assured her she'd be better with some rest. As the group gathered to help her, Kara glanced to the side. At that moment, everyone realized Shutra had disappeared, leaving only an empty hallway. Far away, Shutra celebrated, finally able to breathe a sigh of relief as several level-up notifications appeared before him. He immediately wondered if the sudden advancement was caused by controlling Enkidu's relic. Soon after, a new notification informed him that his Conquest skill had leveled up. Opening the skill screen, he noticed that both Conquest and Under the King's Banner had advanced. Although he didn't fully understand, he concluded that strengthening his main skill could only be a good thing. His attention then turned to the newly acquired King's Knights, which he presumed to be a summoning skill. Just then, a voice called out to him, making him turn around immediately. Caitlin was running toward him. The boy then remembered he had left without telling anyone. Before he could even apologize, the princess punched him hard on the head. She then scolded him for disappearing like that, and he simply apologized. After a moment, she let go and said that since he was safe, they should head back, but they would have to camp there. As they walked together, Caitlin explained that the original plan was different, but a problem had come up. Shutra immediately asked what the problem was. It was then revealed that Felicia had lost consciousness and remained passed out. Caitlin commented that she must have overexerted herself, as she had just been freed from the Scarlet Lightning tribe. She went on to explain that although Felicia had said she would be fine, it was now uncertain when she would wake up. The princess concluded that without her, they couldn't summon the phantom horses and would have to watch over her there for now. Shutra agreed, though he wondered if Felicia would really be okay. Night fell over the mountains. Inside the ruins, the group rested, scattered throughout the hall. Leaning against a pillar, the demon prince remained seated with his arms crossed. A moment later, he wondered if his stamina had fully recovered just from leveling up. Since he didn't feel tired, he considered just waiting until dawn. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Since they were in a ruin, there had to be weapons and treasures hidden in the dungeon. He also thought the place would surely be filled with traps and guardians. His gaze fell upon the thunder hammer in his hands. With the weapon raised, he wondered what would happen if he were the ruler of this place. Finally, he concluded that although the anvil's power only worked there, inside the ruin it manifested as absolute power. With that, Shutra understood he had gained an all-access pass to the entire territory. Meanwhile, Karak was sleeping soundly on the hall floor. The young man then approached and woke up the orc, who was still drowsy. He then invited him to come with him somewhere else. The two walked together down a dark, torchlit corridor. As Karak questioned if this was safe, Shutra reassured him, saying he was the ruler of this place and there was nothing to worry about. As he opened a stone door, he reminded Karak that since it was a ruin, there were surely good weapons hidden inside. Immediately, the orc cast a careful glance inside the room. Right after, he warned of a gigantic monster lying on the floor. Facing the creature, the demon prince recognized it as a griffin-shaped arch-golem, an enemy of devastating power. At that moment, Karak commented they could have died if they had entered carelessly, and suggested they retreat quickly. Despite the orc's insistence, who couldn't hide his terror at the Colossus' presence, he just called him a coward. Then a huge stone door opened at the end of the corridor. Upon crossing through it, Karak exclaimed excitedly that they had finally found the treasure. The orc held up a piece of armor, and the prince agreed that it looked to be of excellent quality. Examining it more closely, he felt a subtle aura of mana and confirmed it was magic armor. He then offered the item to Karak, who hesitated before asking if he could really keep it. The prince confirmed, noting the armor was too large for him, and the orc thanked him enthusiastically. Soon after, some coins on a nearby table caught his eye. He then picked up one of the ancient gold coins and decided to store all the useful items in his inventory. Meanwhile, he instructed Karak to gather everything of value. Suddenly, a chest in the corner of the room caught his attention. Approaching to investigate, he opened it and found it full of coins. At that instant, a strange sound echoed through the room. Surprised, he turned around, trying to understand what was happening. Before his eyes, a wall began to slide slowly, revealing a hidden space. With that, he declared that there was definitely something beyond. He then moved toward the newly exposed passage. After crossing the narrow corridor, a vast chamber opened up before him. The prince just remained silent, observing every detail of the new place. In the center, on a pedestal, floated an object shrouded in a peculiar energy. He immediately recognized the mana emanating from the relic. Even without ever having seen it before, the name Enkidu instinctively came to his mind. Soon he identified the item as the Gauntlet of Enkidu. Finally, the relic's true name was revealed before him, Earthquaker. Before the pedestal, he stood in silence, just watching the relic that floated before him. Soon, a voice echoed, calling him the Valiant Knight of Conquest. In that instant, he recognized the item as the Gauntlet of Enkidu. Deciding the relic was calling to him, the demon prince walked toward it. As soon as his hand touched the gauntlet's surface, multiple notifications appeared informing him that his level, mana, mental strength, and physical strength were insufficient. Even without fully understanding, he wondered if he still couldn't wield it. Suddenly, a new message flashed before his eyes. Permission granted. Immediately, another notification informed him that the gauntlet recognized him as its master. Finally, a last declaration appeared, confirming that the user of the Earthquaker would be changed to Shutra. In the same instant, the gauntlet flew to his arm and attached itself firmly. A wave of energy then exploded around him, filling the entire hall as the relic equipped itself. He just watched, surprised, as the energy flowed through his body from the new equipment. As he looked at the gauntlet, he couldn't hide his astonishment at being recognized as its master. Next, he noticed that his strength, mana, and resistance attributes had increased drastically. He then wondered how that was possible just from equipping the item and pondered what would happen when he reached the proper level. Enchanted, he declared that the gauntlet was simply incredible. On the information screen, the name Gauntlet of Enkidu was clearly displayed, and he concluded the item was even better than he had expected. Suddenly, Karak appeared behind him, asking what had happened. The orc revealed he had seen everything, including the moment the gauntlet appeared out of nowhere. While confirming that he had indeed witnessed the scene, Shutra thought it would be problematic if his inventory were revealed. At this, Karak considered that it would only become a burden if other people found out. That he swore he would keep the secret forever, taking it to his grave. Faced with the promise, the prince asked if they should head back now that they had gathered what they needed. As he prepared to leave, he commented that the place gave him a bad feeling. Soon they both agreed it would be best to return for now. The two then left the secret chamber and returned to the treasure room. Suddenly, something on the other side of the room caught the prince's attention. He raised a hand to stop Karak and asked him to wait a moment. While the orc questioned why, Shutra just pointed in the opposite direction. With enthusiasm, he declared that exactly what they needed was right there. Back in the main hall, he handed a potion to Felicia, who drank it immediately. In the same instant, a bright glow engulfed her body, drawing everyone's eyes. Soon, she slowly opened her eyes. Holding her, he asked if she was awake, and the princess just murmured his name. With Caitlin's help, she managed to sit up and, still dazed, asked what had happened. The eighth princess then explained that Shutra had brought a mana recovery potion. Still confused, Felicia wanted to know where he could have gotten something so rare. In response, he just gestured to their surroundings and reminded her where they were. Immediately, the princess remembered they were still inside the ruins. With a slight smile, he reminded her not to forget that he was the ruler of this place. He then assured her she could rest without worry, as her mana would be fully restored when she woke up. Felicia then thanked him, which left him surprised. Shortly after, she repeated her thanks, embarrassed. The next morning, the sun rose over the gorge where the battle had come to an end. From the camp, General Bandal announced that they had finally returned. The general celebrated the group's return, declaring that from the beginning, he believed the prince and princess would succeed. Amid the celebration, Chris cleared his throat discreetly to get Felicia and Shutra's attention. The seventh prince turned toward the group and cleared his throat again, hesitating for a moment before he could speak. He then praised Felicia, acknowledging that her work had been impressive. Confidently, the princess replied that it had been nothing. Shutra just watched the interaction between the two. Next, Chris instructed her to rest while they handled the cleanup, which surprised her. He then clarified that the remnants of the Crimson Lightning tribes still needed to be eliminated, but everything would be resolved in half a month at most. Hearing that, Shutra asked Caitlin if it meant they would have half a month of vacation. Immediately, the princess moved closer and whispered in his ear that there would be no vacation. The sudden closeness left him stunned. Finally, Caitlin stated directly that he still had something to settle with her. Far from the camp, Shutra's new task began in a secluded forest. Suddenly, the demon prince took a direct punch to the stomach. The energy-infused blow was thrown with full force. Facing him, Caitlin warned him to pull himself together or face the consequences. As he fell to the ground, the princess ordered him to get up immediately. On the ground, he reflected that the beast fist art training was brutal. It was then revealed that the task Caitlin mentioned was this very training. For the first 5 days, it consisted only of Shutra being hit repeatedly. Only after a week could he begin to see Caitlin's punches. The 11th day of training then arrived. Now he could already follow her movements and dodge her attacks. Seeing this, Caitlin commented that he was starting to keep up with her very well. The demon prince replied that it was about time, after all the beatings he'd taken. Thanks to the intense training, his beast fist art and aura skills reached level 5. Finally, Caitlin declared that from that point on, he was ready to begin the god beast fist art. She then praised him, stating she was impressed and had never seen anyone learn so quickly. The young man focused, determined to finally master the Lycan's secret technique. Next, the princess took his hands and declared she would teach him a new way to use aura. Holding his hands firmly, Caitlin instructed him not to miss a single detail and to follow carefully. With a nod, Shutra confirmed he understood. Their joined hands began to glow with an intense energy. Immediately, a massive explosion of aura erupted around them. With his eyes closed, Shutra stated that he could feel Caitlin's aura. He then realized the energy guided him in a similar yet different way, allowing him to feel the depth of the aura more and more. The boy reflected that aura, when pushed to its extreme, became the power of the soul and of conquest. To him, conquering and demanding obedience was a fierce and dominating form of power. As he floated amidst the energy, Shutra wondered if this was what true aura felt like. Back in the forest, the pillar of energy slowly dissipated. Shortly after, notifications appeared informing him that his beast fist art and aura levels had increased. Facing him, Caitlin simply commented that he was incredible. With that, another notification announced he had acquired God Beast Fist Art Level 1. The Demon Prince looked at the energy in his hand, reflecting on his new achievements. He closed his fist and released a wave of power. The aura continued to swirl around him and Caitlin in the forest clearing. Soon after, a final notification informed him that his level had risen to 14. As he was watched by a mysterious figure, Shutra declared that this was the moment everything would truly begin. The observer remained silent, hidden behind a tree. The next morning, the demon camp was already fully restored. Inside a tent, Shutra and Caitlin were sitting at a table. The demon prince then asked if he could question her about Felicia. Next, he wanted to understand why things between her and Chris were the way they were. As he reflected on the need for Felicia as an ally, he considered that the tense relationship between them could be a problem. Caitlin explained that they didn't get along badly, but they seemed distant from each other. She added that there had been no direct incident between them. Finally, she suggested the tension might be related to something involving Chris and Sylvan. She immediately scolded Shutra for using Sylvan's name so casually, and he promptly apologized. He then remembered that Sylvan Doomblade, Felicia's twin brother, was a troublesome adversary when he played as Zephyr. The demon prince then began to wonder what the real problem between Chris and Sylvan could be. At that moment, Chris entered the tent, surprising them both. As soon as he sat at the table, Shutra asked what was going on and why he had arrived early. In response, Chris ordered them to pack their things, explaining the matter was resolved faster than expected, and they would be leaving in the afternoon. Hearing the news, Shutra wanted to know where they were going. The seventh prince declared that with the matter settled, they needed to present themselves, of course. Next, General Bandel thanked the princes and princesses for their effort and dedication during that time. He then stated that he eagerly awaited the day they would meet again. Shutra replied that he would also wait for him. In front of the whole group, Chris asked if they should leave now. Finally, he announced they were going to the Demon King's castle. The imposing castle then appeared under a red and gloomy sky. Inside a vast throne room, a solitary figure remained seated. The figure was then revealed to be the imposing Demon King, waiting on his throne.